Welcome to the Buffalo Jeff Show. You are all my puppets. And today, Buffalo Jeff has come out to play, though you may not like my games. You also don't have a choice. And today, I have a few stories for you, so sit back and listen. This is the end, friend. Just let it happen. Our first story is all about Buffalo Jeff's favorite word, family. And some people go to any lengths for family. I've gone to many lengths for family. I've taken so many families across state lines on some fun journeys. And they have so much fun they never want to return home. It's not like they could if they wanted to. The Whitakers of Sugarland, Texas, were a happy upper-middle-class family. Were. The kind that all the neighbors were secretly jealous of. In December 2003, Kent and Trisha's oldest son, Bart, announced he had finally graduated from Sam Houston University. The whole family went out for a celebratory dinner. When they got back home after a night of wholesome fun, Bart stayed in the car looking for his missing phone, while his parents and brother Kevin went inside, where they were brutally gunned down by an armed robber. While Kevin and Trisha were killed, Kent was only wounded. He watched as Bart, the last Whitaker standing, rushed into the house to drive away the killer, getting a bullet in the arm for his effort. He got off light, if you ask me. Things weren't as Bruce Wayne as they seemed. The cop found some very suspicious evidence, like how nothing had been stolen except for Bart's phone, and how Bart hadn't actually graduated or even attended the university he'd said, and also how one of Bart's friends called them to say that Bart had tried to hire him to murder his family and make it look like a botched robbery. Very suspicious indeed. The buddy had politely turned down the offer, but police soon found two who hadn't. Greg Brashear and neighbor Stephen Champagne, who not only panicked and confessed the whole thing, but also pointed authorities to where they'd hidden Bart's very incriminating cell phone. And not that Bart was worried about being arrested. He had already skipped the country a year prior to go live in Mexico under the name Rudy Rios. And despite his best efforts, Bart Rudy was eventually arrested in Mexico. 2 years later, the unrepentant mastermind was sentenced to death. But there was one person still in Bart's corner. Kent Whitaker of all people. Kent not only campaigned for his son's freedom, telling the state that he would be victimized again if the state put to death his last remaining immediate family member. But he even wrote a book about his experiences whose dedications read, "My son, I love you, all is forgiven." Because of his empathetic campaigning, Bart's sentence was commuted to life in prison, mere minutes before his lethal injection was to take place. Stupid is as stupid does, and stupid gets caught. If he would have called me Bart, there wouldn't have been any leftovers. I have a wonderful cookbook for leftovers titled Ovarian Eggs and Ham. I highly recommend it. If you got food on the brain, this story might tickle your fancy. This French dinner scene looked as if it had suddenly stopped. Lucien Perrault, 69, sat at a table slumped beside a half-finished plate of roast beef, canned beans, camembert, a nibbled-at baguette, and a glass of wine. His guest for the dinner at his house, Oliver Boudin, 38, was lying on the ground beside the table. Both were dead. There was no sign of a robbery, no sign of a fight. No sign of foul play. The pair had no enemies and lived simple lives in the tiny French village. The morbid mystery of what killed the men had gripped much of France. The tin of preserved beans may have been contaminated, a sudden, fatal case of botulism causing both to drop dead, police speculated. The beans, cheese, beef, bread, and wine were all sent to the Pasteur Institute in Paris to check. Negative. No botulism. Perhaps the mafia had come to small-town France. Some neighbors speculated. Just as speculation about the deaths grew silly, the exact cause was revealed. Postmortem suggested drunk Perot had choked after trying to swallow a big piece of beef rib without chewing properly. He reportedly had several teeth missing. Doctors suggest Boudin had a genetic heart condition, had a heart attack seeing his friend die. Locals told Le Parisien newspaper it was a stupid death, but it was good to know the mafia wasn't involved. The French are weak people. They wouldn't last 5 minutes with Buffalo Jeff. Réalisez mon espoir, je vais vers l'espoir, ok. Je mène l'autonomie. Now it's time for today's final story. I guarantee it's one you'll never forget. Late afternoon, February 28th, Fukushima, Japan. A 23-year-old female teacher noticed something strange while going to the toilet. It was an old type of toilet that required the user to squat down. The woman saw a shoe when she looked into the pit. She went outside to open the lid of the tank only to find a human foot sticking out. Horrified, she screamed for help, and later one of her co-workers called the police. The body was removed from the tank covered in waste. After the body was washed, the victim was quickly identified by the locals as 26-year-old Naoku Ojino. The toilet was an old and simple model. The septic tank was shaped like a sharp U. One pipe is for waste to come in, the other is for the cleaner to remove and clear the waste. The diameter of the cleaning pipe was 14 inches, and the flat pipe at the bottom was 18 inches and 49 inches long. Naoku was found lying at the bottom portion of the pipe. The position he was found in baffled people. Naoku was lying on his back with his legs folded up like he was in a fetal position. What is even more strange is that even though it was winter, Naoku did not have his shoes or shirt on. Instead, he was found holding his neatly folded shirt to his chest. What's even more fascinating was that Naoki was 5'7", with the shoulder length of 16 inches, which means Naoki had to squeeze himself into the pipe with great difficulty. The firefighter and police struggled to get the body out in vain. In the end, they had to destroy the entire pipe to remove the body. This shows that it is quite impossible for someone else to put the body into the pipe in such a strange position. So how did it get there? The body was found on February 28th, however the autopsy showed that Naoki had died 2 days earlier on the 26th. Naoki himself was reported to have gone missing on the 24th after he told his father he was going to run some errands and return a few videotapes. Naoki Ojino was a promising and reputable young man living in the region. He was well known among the locals. Naoki worked as a sales manager of a company supporting nearby nuclear power plants. According to the local, he was an upstanding and reliable person, which is why both his father and the villagers were outraged when the police concluded that Naoki had died while trying to peep at the women in the bathroom. Some guys will do anything for a peek. Buffalo Jeff takes more than a peek. He takes whatever he wants. If I catch someone taking a peek at me, I peek back hard. Come back next time for more. Goodbye.